Montauk. So you actually lived near there? Is that how, because you were in Brooklyn, or did your family move to Long Island? Let's start there.
Yeah. Then when I was 13 years old, my family moved to Long Island exactly a few months before the Montauk project began. And I was in that project for 13 years.
How old were you? 13 when you started, and did you go to Camp Hero, or that little? It was a little place with a. Yeah, they closed it down. They used to let fishermen fish out there. Little bitty. Were you at the brick cement? I remember cement, a lot of cement, but that's about it. I don't remember a whole lot about it.
The base, what you may have remembered, was on the surface, but there were 9 levels underneath that, and the work where I was taken was in the underground area.
Now, was that through the Air Force Base? Because there was a Grumman place out there, top secret, where my husband's dad worked, because my husband worked at NASA and he worked at Grumman. But when I went out there, there was, when you went in a gate, there was, do you remember, well, you were 13, I was 16, so we weren't too far apart in age difference. But do you remember where the secret place was for Grumman right there? Was Camp Hero close to there or not?
Yes, it was within, I will say, 15 minutes of that location.
Wow!
But there were several entrances to the base. The Montauk base, the Air Force base, had its own main gate, but there were also secret entrances from the town of Montauk and other locations at the lighthouse, and there were even entrances as far west as the West Hampton Air Force Base, which is still in operation.
Oh, well, I stayed at a house out on the island, and I've always wondered if the little boy I saw might have been Andrew Bishago. That's how I started researching Andrew's story, based on Stargate and also Pegasus. But I just started as an investigator and researcher trying to put the stories together and connect the dots. So Janet mentioned that you were part of that. So how did you get with your parents? Because I remember this little boy playing out, and his parents talked about how gifted he was. But when I went, I got sick as a dog in 68, 69. And, of course, they worked at Grumman, but I got taken out there, and I remember just getting sick, men in white coats. But I don't remember much else. I really don't. I just remember that.
Why were you there, TJ? Were you
I don't know.
part of the time travel program, or?
I think it had to do with I was a psychic even as a child. So I remember I went out to White Sands, New Mexico, and had that, the UFO family, and then when I was 4. So I think it tied in because my mind remembers these little ETs or grays needing help, and they were behind this real thick glass and cement underground. But I remember the only visions I've got is men, and there were doctors in a white lab coat. I went into the Air Force Base with my family. They were instructed to take me there because Chris Kraft hired Steve out at NASA in Houston and his dad at Grumman. And so they transferred him out to Long Island to work on a secret space program on some aircraft, but somehow they knew I had ET UFO abilities, and they both knew it, my husband and my his father. So since I had psychic abilities, and I used to ask them about the ETs that I met all the time in White Sands, they were real interested. So I put my foot in my mouth, apparently, or either the ETs organized this, Stewart. I don't know. You may know more than I do. But I was part of something, but I have no memory other than the men in the white coats, the glasses going underground, and a lot of really thick cement. When I think of it, I think of these big, a room and lots of, like NASA, if you've ever been in NASA or seen the space station, a lot of equipment, and over in one left side, I'm pointing, but you can't see me, I'm pointing, Stewart. To the left was a room with real thick gray cement, like block, and it was thick glass, and one guy was really sick, and one was trying to communicate with me, and I can remember that. And I would tell them like a little kid, even though I was a teenager, what they were saying. So that's my only memory, Stuart. So what did you do? What was your part?
Oh, well, that's a very big question, Theresa. Well,
well, I can't remember most of it. That's all I can remember. So now what do you remember?
I know. Well, I'll tell you, Theresa, I know exactly what you were involved in because, and it's a complicated story, but what you were seeing were the survivors of a crash in New Mexico, which is a little bit different than the story we heard about Roswell. But this story actually took place in a different location, and these beings came from the Zeta Reticuli 2 star system, the ones that you saw, and they were trying to communicate back to their home world to be rescued. That's a whole
yeah,
other
that's what
story.
It felt like.
Yeah, and that took place somewhere around 1965 when the rescue ship came, and then the United States government sent 13 people back with them, and that's a whole nother story.
I have no clue about that. Never heard it.
Is that the Planet Serpo project?
Yes, that's right, Jack.
Oh, it is.
Correct.
Oh, my goodness. This is wonderful. So did you see those gray aliens, or was that before you got there? Were they still there?
Well, because I was involved in 1970, and this happened in the 60s.
Right.
So that was a little bit before my time. But we learned about that in Montauk because Montauk, was involved in many, many different things. To answer Theresa's question, it was involving, of course, alien communication. It involved also what we called hyperspace language. It involved a sexual magic ritual, mind control programming, weather manipulation, esoteric weaponry. There was many, many projects that were going on at the time. And in the last 6 months, I have come into contact with a physicist from NASA, who's actually French, but he worked in NASA for over 40 years. And he said to me, oh, yes, he knows very well about Montauk Project. And he said, believe it or not, they had things going on there since the 1940s.
Wow.
A lot of stuff. Mm-hmm.
So they really did have something going on time travel. Now, I don't know this for a fact, Stuart, but this is firsthand information. But my firsthand information is memories. But I always have been interested in time travel since when I was 4. I went up on a ship, and they said I had to stay here. So I felt abandoned on the planet. Ruth Montgomery called me a walk-in. And then after that, at 3rd grade, I willed myself to White Sands. This is the short version. So I got to go over there to meet them again. It's like they willed me, and you can get into this if you want, but somehow I got to White Sands, New Mexico, Los Alamos. So I had relatives working underground at Los Alamos and on the testing missiles. So I knew about that, and I saw some there that came down on a spacecraft. They put my 2 cousins to sleep, 10 and 13. So I got to go on the spacecraft and sort of look around and be told there would be a school, and and then I got to come off. And then I lived my teenage life knowing that I could, I don't know if you'd call it time travel or have dreams, special dreams, or lucid dreaming, but I've always been different that way, and I always wondered if they all connected. So Janet and I have been working together all these years to put together. And so she told me that you may have something for me, because what we do is we're trying to connect the stories, finding a fact in balanced way that people can see it may affect them. So you understand then that some of these places, regardless of where they're located, they may be connected to military bases and corporate contractors. Is that what you understand, like Grumman or TRW?
Yes.
Yeah, let Stewart explain this. He's got the whole story. Go ahead, Stewart.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. But yes, absolutely correct. And I have to say, there are many, many groups. We can't say when we talk about and let me just even before I even go into all of that, from a government legal perspective, there is a distinction between the word alien and the word extraterrestrial, because they're two different things. Even though people use them interchangeably, they're really two different things. From a legal U.S. government perspective, an alien is a physical being who comes from a physical planet within this universe. An extraterrestrial could be a borderline physical or non-physical being who may not necessarily be from this universe, but from a parallel, alternate reality. So we have to make that distinction when we use these words, because people may get confused about it. And that's why in the United States, it's illegal for a U.S. citizen to have unsupervised communication with an extraterrestrial, but it's not illegal to have communication with an alien, because an alien can easily be monitored, but an extraterrestrial may not be so easy to monitor. I just want to put that out there first of all, so we can understand the terminology. And that leads me to what happened at the Montauk Project and what we were involved in. And in the beginning, the U.S. was involved with many groups who were both alien and extraterrestrial, who claimed that they had certain abilities and technologies that they could exchange for ability to work and operate within the Earth's atmosphere and so on. Of course, we later on found out that they operated anyway, regardless of any agreements, and it was just really a deception on their part. But in Montauk, we were involved in, yes, time travel. We were also involved in understanding what they call the language of hyperspace, which is a color, tone, and archetype which comes from a level beyond the astral planes that goes into a pure energy level, a pure mind, pure transmission, pure knowing, which they consider to be the level of the God mind that creates all things. So my work was involved in basically learning what that meant, how to use it, what formulas you can create with it, and so on. Unfortunately, the government took that information and used it as a way to program and mind control people globally, because, and I'm sure most of the listeners know what the Illuminati are, the 13 families that control the planet. And when you are a relatively small group of people, and when I say relatively small, I mean, maybe tens of thousands of people, and you have to be in charge of billions, and now we're almost 8 billion people. Of course, weapons and armies are not enough, because the 8 billion can easily overwhelm a few thousand, yes? And so the best strategy, and this came from the Nazis actually, is to mind control and program people into specific alters and functions that they don't question. And the mind, what we were told in the Montauk is that the best slave is the one who doesn't know that they're a slave. And unfortunately, that's where we are right now on this planet, where we have all these millions and billions of people who think they're free, and they're not, especially in the United States and Europe. So there's a lot going on, and we're just now getting into what they call global rituals that the Illuminati have planned. For example, the staged alien invasion, the staged second coming of Christ, and so on. So we're at the very edge of this right now.
So what was your role, Stewart, at Montauk? You were involved with the time travel. Is it also teleportation? You can go to other planets, and there's the Montauk chair. Can you explain? Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. Gee, it sounds like my ex-wife is over there.
She has a little yappy dog. You got to catch the mute button. Okay,
yeah,
so
Yeah, everybody should know that I have a strange sense of humor, and I'm not politically correct. So let's get that up front right now.
Oh,